But Adrian Wojnarowski joins us here on the floor. Obviously, the big story for Philly, Woj, is the health of Joel Embiid. What can you tell us about his status going forward?
Hey, Greeny, Joel Embiid is going to undergo an MRI tomorrow on that injured right thumb when the Sixers return to Philadelphia. Now, sources tell Ramona Shelburne and me that the initial examination of that thumb suggested ligament damage. After Game 3, Joel Embiid played Game 4 without undergoing that MRI, scored 21 points today. Now, he insists he is going to play through whatever the injury is. If he has to have surgery, he'll do it after the season. But Joel Embiid insists, even if he has torn ligaments in that right thumb, which the initial exam suggested it might be, he's going to play through it and forge on in these playoffs for the Sixers.
All right, Woj, thank you. Obviously, such a tough break for a team that is off to such a good start. And let me go directly to my players here. Jalen, you watched the game, and JJ, you as well. From what you saw, Jalen, with whatever it is he's got in that hand, can he still lead this team to the NBA Finals?
Embiid is so very dominant that he can do anything. But this Philadelphia team can't make the finals with this version of James Harden. He's 0 for 8 on runners and floaters. He's shooting less than 50% on layups. He had 20 points today. 10 were free throws. They're going to need a more productive James Harden. They're going to get out of the second round.
I look at this in two ways. Number one, let's give the Toronto Raptors some credit for not letting go of the rope. It's very easy to do that. You've been there as a player down 3-0.
Yeah,
you start thinking about Turks and Caicos. That's a very real thing.
That's right.
That's a very real thing. So let's give them some credit. My concern is the same concern that Jalen has. James Harden has to be some version of the James Harden we saw in Brooklyn prior to him hurting his hamstring. Of course, the numbers are there. 22 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds. But he has to be an efficient scorer for them to have a chance to win a championship.
James Harden looks done. And I don't need Jalen Rose's glasses to tell me that. Okay, let's just get it out of the way right now. And what I mean by done, he's not a scrub. He can still play. He can average over 20 and 8 for you. That's not what I mean when I say he's done. I'm talking about the James Harden that we saw at Houston. That brother is no more. He's not getting this level of separation that he once does. He's not getting loose and evasive from defenders because he just doesn't have the quickness. He hasn't been the same since that hamstring injury. He doesn't look like he has prepared for. He's really healthy. And as a result, that puts even more onus on Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, I watched the game. The bottom line is he's not 100% healthy. He's going to play, but you need him to be the Joel Embiid, and he can't do it against Miami.
So
they're not going to the conference finals.
So can I paint a picture for you that JJ eloquently teed up? The Philadelphia 76ers better win the next game.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, Doc Rivers has been the coach that allowed teams to come back a couple of times for a 3-1 deficit.
I agree.
And then the pressure's going to be even more on James Harden, and Embiid's also dealing with the injury.
We should state no team has ever come from 3-0 down in an NBA playoff series. There's a first time for everything. You were with the Heat last night. You had the Heat and Hawks for us on ESPN last night. That Miami team that you saw, albeit in a loss last night, can this version of the Sixers beat them in the next round?
No, sir.
No.
They cannot. And look, I do think the 76ers have the best player in that series in Joel Embiid.
Yep. Do they right now?
But all the stuff
hand,
we were talking earlier about the Celtics and the Kevin Durant matchup, those same issues, Sixers have that with Miami.
But let's not overlook the hand. The injury is a significant factor.
You could tell it was bothering him. He needs to get the MRI. They need to know what it is going forward.
But that's why you got to win and take care of business to play less games.
For Mike Greenberg, ladies and gentlemen. He's looking so forward to Philadelphia, Miami. You're reaching. It's over. They're not beating Miami because Joel Embiid is not 100%. You can grill J.J. Redick the only way you can. You can grill Jalen. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter, Greeny. They ain't beat Miami.
Let me ask the legendary former columnist from the Philadelphia Inquirer, don't you feel bad for Embiid because he is playing so well? He's having his best season, an MVP caliber season, playing so well in these playoffs, and now he gets this.
I feel very bad for him. I feel very bad for Doc Rivers. I do not feel bad for James Harden. He's got something to prove, and he's in position to prove it. And I'm not going to feel bad for Darryl in order to get James Harden. I'm not feeling sorry for them.
Well,
Embiid and Doc Rivers, yes.
Oh, we're not going to do the feeling sorry thing, period. Because I heard people saying this was Shaq and Kobe. I heard Embiid and Doc saying that this was the year to win a championship.
You ain't hear that from me.
Show us.
We will find out. In the meantime, the Brooklyn Nets have not given up their hopes of winning a championship. And we are ready for the main event. Welcome to Brooklyn with Stephen A. Smith and Jalen Rose. Missing our teammate Michael Wilbon, but delighted to have J.J. Redick with us tonight in Brooklyn. I'm Mike Greenberg, and you can't ask for more than we have right here. Our opening tip tonight, of course, is Kevin Durant, the superstar for Brooklyn, widely considered the greatest pure scorer of his generation, one of the greatest players to ever live. But in this series, he has struggled, including an ugly 0 for 10 in the second half Wednesday that left his Nets in a 2-0 hole headed into tonight. So certainly there is pressure on Brooklyn and there is pressure on Durant. Stephen A., put into perspective what's at stake tonight.
The season, as far as I'm concerned, the Brooklyn Nets lose this game, they're getting swept. It's over. They ain't coming back from a 3-0 deficit. They might win one game, so I might be engaging in a little bit of hyperbole to assume that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving won't win one game. But they certainly ain't coming back from it. The season is on the line in this game. And I'm not talking about just the players as it pertains to Kevin Durant, the shooter, the scorer extraordinaire. I'm talking about Kevin Durant, the leader. What are you going to get from Kyrie? What are you going to get from the pieces around you? This is a squad that you okay putting together from the coaching staff on down to every man on this roster. It's about Kevin Durant, not just the player, but the leader. We're going to find out what the Brooklyn Nets are made of today.
And I don't know if it's an omen or not, but as you spoke, you couldn't see it. A gentleman with a broom was behind you sweeping.
It's appropriate.
I don't know if that is an omen or not. Let's talk about what the Boston Celtics have done, particularly Jason Tatum, to frustrate Durant in this series.
There's two reasons that things have been so tough on Kevin Durant. Number one, Boston has the individual personnel to guard him. And number two, they have executed the game plan. Let's roll the tape here to show what they are doing to frustrate Kevin Durant. Here, Al Horford comes up into a switch. Kevin Durant isolates him. He uses his crossover dribble to create separation. Jason Tatum is in that gap, creates the steal. Watch Jaylen Brown here. He's hugged up on Kyrie, comes over as the secondary defender. Tatum gets the block. Right here, this is a set play. Tice is up at the level. Marcus Smart in a gap position. Durant has to get off the ball. It eventually works his way around back to him. And here he is in ISO. When Jason Tatum has been the primary defender, Durant is 2 for 13 with 7 turnovers. A lot of people have said, well, Brooklyn needs more movement. Here's the reality. The Nets run ISO basketball. When you have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on your team, a lot of your offensive possessions are going to end up in ISO.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Jason Tatum because he's not only been fantastic and the Boston Celtics' best player, but he has a trifecta to me. He's been the best dressed, has the best haircut, and he's been the best against KD. Check out how he's made him work on both ends of the floor. Offensively, it don't matter. Whether it's on the post, he's taking advantage of him off the dribble. But this is what I want to show, JJ. How many times do you see somebody block KD's jumper one-on-one?
Never.
And then take him on the other end and score on him. Now, Al Horford's done a terrific job this series. How about Al Horford has more field goals this series than Kevin Durant does? And he's also given double-figure boards. But again, Jason Tatum has ascended into a top 7 player in this series and in this year.
I appreciate the expert analysis from both of y'all because y'all ain't wrong with with anything that you have said. But the bottom line is with everything that y'all have said, when people have tried to do it in the past throughout the illustrious career of Kevin Durant, it has never worked. This man went 0 for 10 in the second half. I challenge anybody on the planet Earth that tells me there was a time when Kevin Durant went 0 for anything in the second half. It just never happened, but it happened in this series. These guys are coming after him. They're coming after him individually. They're coming after him collectively, and they're not only daring somebody else on the Brooklyn Nets to beat them, they're daring Kevin Durant to beat them. He's got to answer the call.
I think part of the reason it's so tough as well, Kevin Durant, like any offensive player, requires a rhythm. Whether it's off the dribble or on the catch at the elbow, they are into his space. He's not able to get in that rhythm and get to his spot.
Bruce Brown's played well. Goran Dragic's played well. We're talking about KD. How do they avoid 3-0? They're going to need Durant and Kyrie to play well, who also